Have you ever witnessed a mother slap her own daughter in front of 300 elite guests while a jazz band plays Gershwin in the background? No? Well, welcome to my life. Imagine you're at your sister's wedding. We're talking the Fairmont Copley Plaza in Boston, the kind of place where the air smells like old money and overpriced orchids. The guest list is a who's who of federal judges, high-powered attorneys, and the city's absolute 1%. Before we dive into the story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is and what city you're watching from. Now let's get back to my story. And right there, on the stage under the crystal chandeliers, Mom hands you a stack of legal papers. She isn't asking for an autograph. She's demanding you sign over your $3.5 million beach house in Malibu, the house you built with your own sweat and tears, as a wedding gift for your sister. You say no. You say it firmly. And then, her palm connects with your face so hard your diamond stud flies across the marble floor like a shooting star. That was my reality on March 15, 2024. My name is Olivia Miller, and for 28 years I was the family doormat. They expected me to leak a few tears, apologize for being difficult, and sign the deed just to keep the peace. Instead, I tracked down my earrings, stood up straight, and made one phone call. 1 hour later, a woman walked into that reception. When Mom saw her, she started screaming because the person she'd told everyone was senile and gone had just walked through the front doors with a shark of a lawyer and a mountain of proof. But to understand how we got to that slap, we have to go back 3 years. It was a Tuesday evening in March 2021. I was 25 then, living in a cramped studio in Somerville, Massachusetts. I was eating lukewarm pad thai out of a plastic container and staring at blueprints for a kitchen renovation. I had started my own boutique interior architecture firm, Miller & Company, and I was grinding 18 hours a day to make it work. My phone buzzed. Caller ID read Grandmother Martha. "Olivia, sweetheart," Grandmother Martha said. Her voice was as steady as a heartbeat, the same voice that had guided me through every childhood crisis. My grandmother had been a titan in the legal world, a professor at Harvard Law for over 30 years. She didn't waste words on small talk. "I need you to listen, and I need you to be quiet while I speak," she said. She told me she was updating her estate plan. She was leaving me the Malibu beach house, the crown jewel of her portfolio. She'd bought it back in 2015 for roughly $2.8 million. By 2021, the market was screaming, and it was valued at well over $3.5 million. I dropped my chopsticks. "Grandmother, why? I mean, I love that house, but why me? Why not Mom or Savannah?" "Because you're the only one who actually sees me, Olivia," she said simply. "For 10 years, you've shown up every Sunday. You bring me those yellow tulips because you know I hate roses. You sit with me when I'm cranky, and you don't ask for a dime. Mom, Victoria, sends a cold Christmas card once a year, and your sister? I haven't seen Savannah since she figured out I wasn't going to buy her a luxury SUV for her 16th birthday. I felt a lump in my throat. "Grandmother, the family is going to lose it. The mom will lose her mind. The paperwork will be finalized next month," she continued, ignoring my protest. "Marcus Sterling is handling the trust. He's been my lead attorney for 2 decades. Mom will be displeased." That is the understatement of the century. Displeased didn't even cover it. The news leaked by April. In the tight-knit, gossipy world of Boston's legal circles, secrets have the shelf life of an open gallon of milk. Mom organized what she called a family summit at her $5 million townhouse in Beacon Hill. I walked in and felt like I was entering a courtroom where the death penalty was already on the table. Dad was perched in his leather wingback chair like a king on a throne, swirling a glass of scotch. Mom stood by the fireplace, her Cartier bracelets clinking. My younger sister, Savannah, then 22, was draped over the sofa, looking like she was mourning a tragedy. "Olivia," Mom started, her voice sounding like honey poured over shards of glass. "We need to discuss your grandmother's condition. She's clearly not thinking straight. She seems sharper than me, Mom, I said, taking the only empty seat, a hard wooden chair that felt like an interrogation stool. Leaving a multi-million-dollar coastal property to one grandchild while excluding the rest of the family? That is the behavior of a woman losing her grip on reality, Olivia, Mom snapped. It's totally unfair. Savannah wailed, throwing a silk pillow. I've always loved grandmother. I just don't have time to visit her every week like Olivia does. I have a life, a social circle, a career to build in PR. I looked at Savannah, who had a trust fund that could gas up a private jet, and then at Dad, a man who hadn't asked me how my business was doing in 3 years. A man who missed my college graduation because he had a tea time he couldn't move. The equitable thing to do, Olivia, Dad said in that deep, measured voice he used to intimidate juniors, would be for you to decline the deed. Or, at the very least, agree to sell the Malibu house and split the $3.5 million into 3 equal shares for the family. It's only fair. I'm not declining a gift from grandmother, I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. And I'm not selling it. If you have a problem with her choices, take it up with her. The temperature in that room dropped to sub-zero. Mom's fake smile vanished, revealing the predatory look she usually reserved for rivals. Fine, she hissed. Then I hope you're ready for the consequences of being a selfish, manipulative little brat. The consequences were a slow-burn social execution. By the summer of 2021, I was ghosted. I was booted from the family group chat. I found out about Savannah's engagement to a guy named Caleb, a trust fund bro with a shark-white smile and a family name that opened doors at every country club, through an Instagram post. When I called Mom to ask why I wasn't invited to the engagement party at the Boston Harbor Hotel, she laughed. Oh, Olivia, we just assumed you'd be too busy with your little decorating hobby to join the adults. My hobby was now a firm with 12 active high-end clients and a revenue stream that was hitting 6 figures. But in Mom's world, if you weren't a partner at a big law firm or married to a Whitfield, you were a peasant. Even worse, Mom started a smear campaign. She told the neighbors, the country club set, and grandmother's old colleagues that I had brainwashed Martha. She whispered that I was a predator, taking advantage of a confused old woman to snag a beach house. I stayed quiet. I thought if I just kept my head down and worked, the drama would fizzle out. I didn't realize that in my family, silence wasn't peace. It was permission for them to sharpen their knives. Fast forward to December 2023. 3 months before the wedding. I was in my studio when a heavy, cream-colored envelope arrived. It was an invitation to Savannah and Caleb's wedding. Black tie. The Fairmont. I was shocked. After 2 years of being treated like a pariah, they wanted me there? My phone rang that night. It was Mom. Olivia, darling, she said, her voice dripping with artificial warmth. This wedding is a chance for the Millers to be a family again. To show Boston that we are united. We've missed you. I knew the catch was coming. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. And, she continued, it's the perfect time to fix that little beach house situation. Savannah and Caleb want to start a family. They need a proper home, something with status. Something in Malibu. You could present them with the deed as a wedding gift. Think of how magnanimous you'd look. It would wipe the slate clean. Mom, the answer is still no, I said. That house is my home and my office now. I pay the taxes, I pay the upkeep. It's mine. Savannah is marrying into the Whitfield family, Olivia. Do you know who they are? Caleb's dad, Harrison Whitfield, is a senior partner at the most powerful firm in the state. They expect a certain level of prestige. If you don't do this, you're not just hurting Savannah, you're embarrassing the Miller name. You're being that daughter. Then let Harrison Whitfield buy them a house, I countered. The line went dead. I knew then that the wedding wasn't a celebration. It was a trap. If I went and refused to sign in front of their elite friends, Mom would destroy my reputation. If I didn't go, I'd look guilty. 1 week before the big day, Grandmother Martha called me at 6 a.m. Olivia, listen to me, she whispered. If things go sideways at that wedding, and they will, I want you to call Marcus Sterling. Here's his private cell. Write it down. Hide it. Grandmother, what's going on? You sound worried. Victoria thinks I'm a fossil, Martha said, a spark of the old law professor returning to her voice. She forgets I taught the people who wrote the books she reads. Prepared everything, Olivia. She pushes you, you call Marcus. He has the nuclear option ready. March 15th, 2024. The Fairmont Copley Plaza was a fortress of luxury. 300 guests were packed into the grand ballroom. White lilies everywhere. A 12-piece orchestra. I wore a sharp navy dress, feeling like a soldier walking into an ambush. I found Dad near the bar, looking polished in his tuxedo. Glad you could make it, Olivia, Dad said, not looking me in the eye. He looked like a man who was about to do something he knew was wrong but was too cowardly to stop his wife. Savannah appeared in a $20,000 gown, looking like a princess and acting like a dictator. She hugged me, the kind of air hug where you don't actually touch. Did you bring the papers, Liv? She whispered in my ear, her breath smelling of expensive champagne. What papers, Savannah? The transfer for the beach house. Mom said you were finally being a big sister about it. Don't ruin this for me. Mom lied to you, Savannah, I said. Savannah's face contorted. You're going to ruin my day? Over a house you don't even deserve? Caleb's parents are here. Everyone expects us to announce the gift at dinner. It's on the program. That sounds like a you problem, I said, my voice cold. She leaned in, her eyes flashing with a terrifying mimicry of our mother. Mom is going to handle this. And when she's done, you won't have a business left to run in this city. You'll be a pariah. Dinner was served. Toasts began. Dad gave a rambling speech about legacy. Harrison Whitfield talked about merging two dynasties. Then Mom stood up. She grabbed the microphone, her designer gown shimmering like fish scales. Everyone, if I could have your attention, she beamed, the perfect Boston socialite. Family is about sacrifice. It's about making sure the next generation has everything they need to succeed. And tonight, my eldest daughter, Olivia, has a very special announcement regarding our family's beach house in Malibu. The room went silent. 300 heads turned toward my table. Olivia, honey, come up here, Mom said, gesturing to the stage. I walked up there because I had to. I felt the weight of 300 judges, lawyers, and socialites. Mom produced a leather folder. Inside were the quitclaim deeds already prepared with a notary standing right by the stage. Just a quick signature, Olivia, Mom whispered, the mic still live. For your sister. For the family name. Don't be the person everyone says you are. Don't be selfish. I'm not signing it, Mom, I said, my voice echoing through the speakers. The room gasped. A few people actually dropped their forks. Olivia, don't be a child, Mom hissed, her eyes turning into daggers. You set this up to embarrass me into giving away my property, I said, louder now, projecting my voice. I earned my career. Grandmother gave me that house because I was the only one who cared about her while you were busy trying to find a way to declare her incompetent and steal her assets. The silence was deafening. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. You ungrateful, selfish little snake, Mom screamed. She forgot the mic. She forgot the guests. She forgot the Whitfield prestige. Her hand flew out. Crack. The slap was so hard my vision blurred for a second. My silver earring, a gift from grandmother, snapped off and skittered across the floor, ringing like a bell against the marble. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stood there, felt the stinging heat on my cheek, and looked at the crowd of elite guests who were watching a mother assault her daughter over a piece of real estate. I leaned into the microphone one last time. Enjoy the wedding, Victoria. It's the last thing this family is ever going to celebrate together. I walked off that stage. I walked out of that ballroom. I sat on a velvet bench in the lobby, my heart thumping a frantic rhythm. I pulled out my phone and dialed Marcus Sterling. "Marcus," I said, my voice shaking with pure, unadulterated adrenaline. "Tell my grandmother that the documents are needed. Bring everything. Now." "We're already in the car, Olivia," Marcus said. "We'll be there in 20 minutes. Hold your head up." At 8:45 p.m., the heavy brass doors of the Fairmont swung open. My grandmother, Martha Miller, walked in. She was 78, using a cane, but she moved with the authority of a Supreme Court justice. Beside her was Marcus Sterling, carrying a briefcase that looked like it held a death warrant for my mother's reputation. "Grandmother," I stood up, touching my swollen cheek. She looked at my face, her eyes turning into flint. "She hit you." "In front of everyone." "Yeah, she did." "Marcus," she said, not looking away from me. "Ensure the police are on standby for the fraud charges we discussed. But first, I want to see the look on my daughter's face when her world ends." We walked back into that ballroom. The party was awake. People were whispering in corners, the music had stopped, and Mom was frantically trying to explain to the Whitfields that I was unstable and prone to outbursts. Then the room went bone-dry silent. One by one, guests turned toward the entrance. Mom followed their gaze. Her drink nearly slipped from her hand, splashing onto her gown. Her face, which had been flushed with rage, drained of all color until she looked like a corpse. "Mom!" The word came out of Victoria's mouth like a strangled gasp. Her face went white. "What are you doing? How are you even here?" Question didn't come from a place of daughterly concern. It was a jagged shard of glass, hurled from the stage by Mom. Victoria's voice carried across the suddenly silent ballroom of the Fairmont Copley Plaza, cutting through the residual echoes of the jazz band like a blade. "I'm here for my granddaughter's wedding," Grandmother Martha said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it had that professorial resonance that used to command lecture halls at Harvard. Traveled over the 300 elite guests, the judges, the senators, the high society vultures, with effortless authority. I wasn't invited, of course, but I decided to come anyway. I hope Savannah doesn't mind. Savannah, standing in her cloud of white silk and tulle, could only stare. Mascara began to stream down her cheeks in jagged black rivers. She looked less like a bride and more like a child caught in a storm. "What is this?" Mom's voice rose an octave, hitting a frequency of pure desperation. "What are you doing here, Mother?" "I'm doing what I should have done 3 years ago." Grandmother Martha stopped about 10 feet from her daughter, close enough for everyone to see the contrast between Mom's expensive, trembling fury and Martha's iron-spined composure. "I'm telling the truth." She turned away from Mom to face the assembled guests. There were 300 people in that room, many of them legal professionals who spent their lives dissecting evidence. They knew exactly what the shift in the air meant. The atmosphere had turned from a wedding celebration into a high-stakes deposition. "My name is Martha Miller," she began. "I was a professor of law at Harvard for 31 years. I am of sound mind, and I am here to confirm a matter of legal record. The beach house in Malibu, the property my daughter has been publicly demanding my granddaughter surrender tonight, was left to Olivia Miller in my will, dated June 14, 2019. That will is legal, valid, and enforceable. There are no other claims to that property. None." Marcus Sterling, the man Mom had spent years trying to circumvent, stepped forward and clicked open his briefcase. He withdrew a document with a heavy gold seal. "This is a certified copy of Mrs. Miller's will," Marcus announced, his voice steady as a heartbeat. "Notarized and filed with the appropriate probate courts. I've been her attorney for over 20 years, and I can personally attest to its authenticity. Olivia is the sole owner. There is no family gift to be given tonight because the property was never Victoria's to promise." Mom's face contorted into something unrecognizable. The mask of the polished Boston socialite shattered, leaving behind a raw, primal panic. This is absurd. Mother, you're confused. You've been ill. You don't understand what you're saying or the documents Marcus is feeding you. I understand perfectly, Victoria, Grandmother Martha said, her voice turning to ice. What you don't understand is that I've been watching you for 3 years. I let you think I was fading because it was the only way to see your true colors. I've been watching the way you treated Olivia. I've been watching the way you tried to strip her of her dignity and her home. She nodded to Marcus, who withdrew a second set of documents. This was the nuclear option they had prepared in silence. These, Marcus said, holding up a stack of financial ledgers, are transaction records for a property in Cape Cod. A property that was deeded in Martha's name until September 12, 2020, when it was sold for $875,000. The room went completely silent. You could literally hear the ice melting in the abandoned champagne buckets. I did not sell that property, Grandmother Martha continued, her eyes locked on Mom. I could not have sold that property. I was in Massachusetts General Hospital for 6 weeks that fall, recovering from a broken hip. I signed nothing. I authorized nothing. And yet, the sale went through with a signature that looks remarkably like mine. Mom's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. She looked like a fish gasping for air on a dry dock. Marcus produced a third document, bound in a blue legal folder. This is a forensic analysis report from Forensic Document Services. They examined the signature on the Cape Cod sale documents against 40 years of Mrs. Miller's authentic handwriting samples. He turned to the room, ensuring the Whitfield family, Savannah's new in-laws, saw every word. Their conclusion? The signature is inconsistent with Martha's hand. The probability of forgery, 98.7%. A collective gasp rippled through the ballroom. I saw Caleb's father, a managing partner at one of the most prestigious firms in the country, exchange a look of profound alarm with his wife. The scandal wasn't just hitting the Millers, it was splashing onto everyone standing near them. You're lying! Mom finally shrieked, her voice cracking. This is all fabricated. You're senile, Mother. Olivia has poisoned your mind. I'm sharp enough to hire experts, Victoria, Grandmother Martha replied. I'm sharp enough to preserve evidence. And I'm sharp enough to have forwarded this entire file to the district attorney's office last week. Color drained completely from Mom's face. She looked like she might faint onto her designer gown. You didn't. Forgery and fraud, Victoria. Up to 5 years in prison under state law, Martha said, her voice almost gentle now, the same tone she'd once used to explain complex torts to first-year students. I didn't want to believe my own daughter could do this. I gave you 3 years to confess, to make it right. But instead, you spent those years slandering Olivia, calling her a manipulator, and trying to steal her inheritance the same way you stole my property. Mom spun around, looking for an ally. She found Dad. Richard! Say something. Stop this madness. Dad, who had stood by like a statue throughout the entire evening, finally took a physical step backward. He looked at the documents in Marcus's hand, then at his wife. I didn't know, Dad said. His voice was flat, hollow, and utterly empty. I didn't know about the Cape Cod house, Victoria. You signed the transfer. Mom shrieked. You were right there. I signed what you told me to sign, Dad whispered, his cowardice finally reaching its limit. I didn't know it was forged. I didn't ask questions because I didn't want to know the answer. The room watched in horrified fascination as 35 years of a perfect marriage disintegrated in real time under the crystal chandeliers. Savannah finally spoke, her voice small and broken. Mom? What is Grandma talking about? Mom didn't answer. She couldn't. She stood in the center of her own carefully constructed stage, her perfect wedding, her perfect audience, and watched as the foundations of her life turned into ash. Grandmother Martha turned to me. Her eyes were tired and sad, but they were resolute. Olivia, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry I waited so long to step in. It's okay, Grandma, I said, finally finding my voice. I took her hand, her skin feeling like parchment but her grip feeling like iron. I understand now. She squeezed my fingers. Then she looked at Mom one last time. You lost me the day I discovered what you'd done. Tonight, everyone else just got to see the truth. She paused, the silence in the room heavy enough to suffocate. I hope someday you find it in yourself to take responsibility, but I won't hold my breath. She turned toward the exit. I walked beside her, my head held higher than it had been in a decade. Behind us, the dam finally broke. Mom started screaming, incoherent denials, accusations, demands that someone do something. I heard Caleb's parents say something sharp and final to Savannah. I heard the murmur of the crowd crescendo into a roar of gossip that would be the talk of the city for years. But I didn't look back. Not once. We made it to the lobby before Caleb caught up with us. I heard his footsteps first, the quick, sharp click of expensive dress shoes on marble. I turned, expecting anger. What I saw instead was calculation. Mrs. Miller, Caleb addressed my grandmother directly, not even glancing at me. I think we should talk about this privately. There may be some misunderstandings that can be cleared up for the sake of the family merger. Grandmother Martha regarded him with the same expression she probably used on particularly dim-witted students. There are no misunderstandings, Mr. Whitfield. There are only crimes. But surely the Cape Cod situation, families have disputes. Paperwork gets complicated. If we could just sit down with the Whitfield lawyers. The paperwork was forged, Martha cut him off with a voice like surgical steel. My daughter committed fraud. Those aren't disputes. And if you're asking whether I'll give my remaining assets to a granddaughter who just married a man willing to beg for a bribe in a hotel lobby, the answer is no. Caleb's face reddened. Mrs. Miller, you're ruining Savannah's life. No, Martha smiled. That particular smile that made courtroom attorneys nervous. Her mother did that. And you're just realizing the dynasty you married into is a house of cards. You married the wrong Miller, young man. And frankly, Madison is welcome to you. She turned away. Marcus Sterling stepped forward, physically blocking Caleb's path. I'd advise you to return to your bride, Mr. Whitfield. Anything you say now could be relevant to the ongoing investigation. Caleb, the son of the most prestigious legal family in Boston, suddenly looked very young and very scared. He retreated without another word. We stepped out into the cold March night. The air smelled like impending rain, and the streetlights cast golden pools on the cobblestones of Copley Square. Grandma, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I'm so sorry. About the wedding, the scene, all of it. She patted my arm. Don't be sorry, Olivia. I've been waiting 3 years to say those things. It felt wonderful. Despite everything, I laughed. Came out raw and broken, but it was real. What happens now? Marcus answered, his voice measured. The district attorney's office will proceed. Martha has provided substantial documentation. Whether charges are filed will depend on their review, but the evidence is compelling. As for Mom, that's up to the courts now. We've done what we needed to do. I thought about Mom still in that ballroom, surrounded by the ruins of her reputation. I felt a savage satisfaction, yes, but mostly I just felt tired. I'm not doing this for revenge, I said, perhaps trying to convince myself. No, Martha agreed. You're doing it because some things can't be allowed to continue. Some lies can't be permitted to stand. There's no cruelty in telling the truth, Olivia. There's only clarity. The fallout was swift and measured. 2 weeks after the wedding, Mom was summoned to the DA's office. The interview lasted 4 hours. When she emerged, she looked 10 years older. Her attorney, a colleague from her tennis club, withdrew from the case within days, citing a conflict of interest. The real reason? He'd seen the evidence and knew a losing battle when he saw one. Dad moved to a hotel on March 28th. He released a statement claiming he was seeking space to process revelations. Whether anyone believed him didn't matter. His signature was on those documents. Claiming ignorance only worked if people were inclined to give you the benefit of the doubt, and after 30 years of standing silently beside Mom, Dad had used up his goodwill. Savannah and Caleb postponed their honeymoon indefinitely. The dream of moving into my beach house was dead. The social consequences were even more devastating. Mom was disinvited from every charity gala in the city. The Boston Bar Association opened an ethics inquiry. I am sitting on the balcony of my Malibu beach house. The sky is streaked with orange and pink, reflecting off the Pacific like scattered jewels. It's the kind of evening my grandmother always loved. She's here now. Martha comes every Sunday. We spend the day together, really together. No agendas, no performances. Dad called me yesterday, I told her, swirling my wine. He wanted to explain his side. He says he didn't know about the Cape Cod house. He says Mom handled the paperwork and he just signed. Do you believe him? Martha asked. I believe he chose not to know, I said. And I told him I wasn't ready to see him. That if he wanted a relationship, he'd have to earn it by showing up consistently, not by making excuses. She reached over and squeezed my hand. That's a healthy boundary, sweetheart. Savannah texted me last week, too. She asked if I would call her. But she still hasn't apologized. She still hasn't acknowledged that she was willing to take my home to satisfy her own vanity. She knew Grandma, I said. Maybe not about the fraud, but she knew about the pressure. She never once defended me. If she wants a sister, she has to want to know the truth. And she isn't there yet. Love without respect isn't love, Olivia, Martha said, her eyes sharp and knowing. It's just habit. You deserve both. I started therapy in April. It's hard work, unlearning 30 years of being a doormat. But I'm building a life now, a business that is growing, a grandmother who truly loves me, and a future I'm building one honest choice at a time. If you've ever had someone in your life who believed in you when no one else did, cherish them. And if you're in a situation where your family expects you to sacrifice yourself for their comfort, remember this: protecting your peace is not a crime. It is a necessity. I watched the sun dip below the horizon, the light fading but the clarity remaining. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was the one who had dropped it, and I was finally free. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more like it, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Take care of yourselves. Thank you for listening to my story. Until next time, remember, truth is the only foundation worth building on. Goodbye.